Hello and welcome to the Overly Animated Podcast, where we take animation seriously. We talk everything animation here, including Rick and Morty, which we'll be getting into right now. I'm Dylan Hysen, and today I'm joined by Delaney Stovall.
Hey, y'all.
And Michelle Anderer.
Hello.
We're talking Rick and Morty, specifically the episode that aired last night, Season 4, Part 2, Never Ricking Morty. That title's basically just Rick and Morty in it.
Yes.
Yes.
Never-ending story, I guess. So, if you are unaware, we are moving to a new podcast format where we'll be not talking about every single episode of every single show weekly. And I say that, and then, of course, here we are talking about the first episode of Rick and Morty that comes on because I had a strong reaction to this episode, and so we need to talk about it. So we won't necessarily...
Dylan just started, flipping shit.
I did,
And Dylan was like, we have to do it.
Look, we won't necessarily be back next week or the week after. We will, at the very least, at the end of the season. But if there's super notable episodes, we can come on because we need to at least quickly debrief on this episode.
Also, it's our podcast. We can do what we
just
want.
do whatever.
We want.
I felt like talking about this one. We can talk about this one. So, just quick podcast here. Subscribe to our Rick and Morty feed so you don't, if you don't know when we're going to do it. So just it'll pop up if you're subscribed. Search Overly Animated Rick and Morty on whatever podcatcher, on Spotify, on YouTube at youtube.com/overlyanimated. And check out our previous Rick and Morty podcast at overlyanimated.com. So I want to talk about, is this episode great? What does this mean for the show Rick and Morty? Because this is such a meta episode. What does this mean for what the show is about? But generally, we can start with, Delaney, did you have a strong reaction to this episode too? And did you like it?
Yeah, okay, so I messaged Dylan and I was like, I'm pretty sure I just had a stroke in the middle of this episode, but it was a good stroke.
I think that's an appropriate reaction to this episode.
Oh my god, this episode was so meta, it was ridiculous. It was just overwhelmingly meta, and then on top of that, I'm sorry, the Bechdel test stuff, I just lost my mind. When what is something we will never do? Okay, Morty, do you know what the Bechdel test is? I literally lost my shit. I just started yelling. And then, of course, at the end, we're Jesus. And I was I'm done. I can't.
Literal Jesus, yes.
Literal Jesus. So, this is going to be the episode now where you're what's Rick and Morty about? And it's watch this episode.
Does it answer the question? I guess so. We'll talk about it. Yeah.
This is it's an anti-Rick and Morty episode, but it's also the essential Rick and Morty episode.
That's what I thought. This felt
essential.
like such a quintessential Rick and Morty episode, more than anything else this season.
Yes.
Yeah. Which I think
but then
is
it's also but it seems not Rick and Morty because this isn't the episodes we've been having.
That's true. So we'll talk about what that means. That it's a little.
So
I agree.
weird.
That's a little confusing. Yeah, Michelle, what did you like? Never Ricking Morty.
I mean, I guess I liked it fine. I didn't. I mean, the Bechdel stuff did honestly really get me. And we can get into that later. Just the Morty trying so hard to think of what female things could be and just throwing them all together. Putting bows on the scorpions, that kind of thing was so funny, and so it felt very plausible for his character to just panic and try to just make that work. The train stuff, I mean, yeah, honestly, this did kind of give me vibes of classic Scary Terry kind of episode stuff, just jumping into different scenarios for the sake of doing it a lot and having really funny, maybe slightly gruesome outcomes of those explorations, but then pulling back onto what's supposed to be the reality of the show towards the end, even if there's a little bit of but is this the true reality? I feel we touch on that every so often, every season too. I mean, I wouldn't say this one had consistent high jokes for me or was necessarily the most fascinating, but again, it is the quintessential Rick and Morty episode, like Delaney's saying. It's not, we're not getting a lot of plot stuff, but it is thoroughly entertaining for what it is, but not one of my favorites, I'd say. There are things in this season so far that I've absolutely loved that were such a surprise, but this just feels more general solid episode stuff.
That's interesting. Yeah, I've seen a lot of variation on opinions. Definitely valid. I think like we've connected with the heist episode, we've connected with the snakes episode.
My gosh, yes, the heist is so good. I still think about that quote all the time.
You son of a
you son of a bitch, I'm in.
It's the best meme from the season.
That's how I should have replied to the email. God.
Yeah, come on, dropping the ball on that. The podcast scheduling emails. I think I like this episode better than those. I just had such a strong reaction to this the first time I watched it. And I will say I rewatched it, and sometimes the jokes settle in for you and you don't have as big of laughs. And I think this episode's kind of dependent on a lot of shock laughs. But I don't know, for me this is like the most successful jokes per minute the show has done this season.
It's like ridiculous. They're just like rapid fire.
I think it's more successful in the second half once you kind of understand a little bit what's going on. What's a notable thing is the first half you've just no concept of what's happening, which I think is really
you have
fun.
no idea what's going on.
I think it's really fun. But there's just a lot of funny stuff and a lot of notable stuff. At times, this episode for me is reminiscent of Total Recall, which is my favorite episode of the show.
So good.
And like, I don't know, the Bechdel test stuff reminds me of the summer with the magic lamb.
Yes.
So like that was like, oh my God, I can't believe it's we're doing this, that kind of gag, kind of like that. But and then we just get fake payoffs to all of the potential hanging plot threads. And I was,
it's so good.
I was losing my mind at some of the stuff. And, and we get Rick ranting about capitalism at the end. They somehow got a virus. They somehow got a virus joke in there. We'll talk about that. There's a lot of talk of cum gutters.
Okay, I won't lie. Because they bleeped it out, I was like,
They bleeped cum.
I didn't know what you were saying either.
I didn't know what they were saying. I was like, I obviously understood.
I can't believe you guys aren't familiar with the term cum gutters. I wasn't 100% sure either, but they talk,
I couldn't figure it out. Like I understood like the context, obviously, but then like
the actual word,
I was like, what are they saying? It's great.
Yeah, how dare you guys?
I knew it before this moment, but like it took like I didn't know until I finished the episode.
Felt like they bleeped, and then at the end they said, and I feel like they bleeped it less. That's like at the last time they said it, I don't really understand. But the cum that's straight. There's a lot of just like great cutaway gags, and just in terms of like just fast paced nonsense. Like not nonsense, just like smart nonsense. Like it felt like season 2 and part of season 3, like just core Rick and Morty. Like this felt like not a lot of what season 4 has been doing. I'm a fan of a lot of what season 4 has been doing, but this felt different and a little bit retro. And then also just like what this show means for like the show of Rick and Morty. I felt like this was like a perfect encapsulation of what they've been trying to do with the show, and that we've been like, why are you just trying to reset to the family dynamic? Why, and they're like, no, fuck you. We're going to do what we want. Like, we're going to be, it doesn't mean we can't, I feel like just because they had Evil Morty in this episode doesn't mean that they made fun of it. Doesn't mean we can't really do Rick and Morty.
Well, I mean, I think this is that thing where like they're trying to be like, they just wanted, like, it's part of it, they just want to do whatever they want, but then also they don't want us to guess what's happening. Because it's true, part of what is so funny about Rick and Morty is like the shock value of like literally everything in every episode.
Yeah, I think so. And so this episode's just like, like, fuck you, we're Rick and Morty.
Also, like, we can see this, and then we could still have a lightsaber battle between...
Right, that's what I think, like, this has nothing to do with whether we're going to do any of that plot stuff in the future. Right. So,
like, this is just, again, super meta Rick and Morty episode, and that's why it's so great, because... So, like, the thing was, they had the Bechdel test, but the thing is, this episode was about making fun of Rick and Morty.
It's about, making fun of Rick and Morty and making fun of the fans of Rick and Morty and making fun of expectations surrounding Rick and Morty.
It was great. Like, I think that's why it's so funny, because, like, when they were like, we're breaking the fifth wall.
It's like, I think this is the same thing they've been trying to say for a little while. They end season 3 with like, oh, we're going back to the classic family structure. And I reacted so much, but I feel like this is a similar message of like, the Rick and Morty's just Rick and Morty. Sometimes we'll do something different. This is so much more successful for me when they're saying it here, because it's done in such a funny and smart and out there way. And it's like, we're gonna tell
also
you
calling
to
it an anthology train.
yeah, an anthology, and with the story
Yes.
lord, we're gonna tell you to fuck off, but like we're gonna do it in the most hilarious way.
Yes.
And it's like I'm okay with that. I'm okay with you telling me to fuck off, show, if you're really good. Like this is much better than the season 3 finale for me. So it's like this is okay. Like this is selling me on the future of Rick and Morty. And that's kind of most what I want to talk about. Is like I feel like this as this episode, and in some ways this is disconnected from everything and nonsense, but in some ways this is like the central thesis for Rick and Morty. I'm good if we proceed from this foundation. And like, look, of course I'd prefer not to do the fucking dragons,
God.
The slut dragon.
the slut dragons. Of course I would prefer if we don't do that. And I'd prefer we do more of this stuff. But if the show's gonna say, like, we're gonna, that's what we'll do sometimes we'll do other, like, okay, like, I feel like I'm buying it more now, having watched this episode. I will say this fast-paced meta-ness, out there-ness is different, I think, than we've seen with a lot of previous episodes this season. I think a lot of episodes are more focused, more ABC, plot structure.
Well, they made fun of it too. Like, this episode was like, they were trying so hard. But it was funny as hell. Like,
and they were trying really hard. And I feel like in the one production thing I've seen, Dan is like, we went way too far on this episode. And this, I feel sometimes this was like, I loved that they went way too far.
It's so funny.
Like go further than Slut Dragons. Take it further. Like do this.
Yeah, that's
episode.
the thing. That's the point of the show. Like, that's what we talk about all the time. We take a concept and then we like take it to like absurdity. Slut Dragons didn't go far enough. Like.
It's not far enough.
like Slut Dragons could have been funnier if you had just taken it somewhere else. Like, you ended on Slut Dragons. We could have pushed it so much further.
Yeah, but also
they weren't quite confident enough with what they had in that moment, but they were very confident here, and they're like, "Oh yeah, well, fine, let's just do it. Let's just go all the way."
Yeah, I really love that they just went all the way here, and like if we come back to this central point with Rick and Morty, and it's like, what is this even? What is the central point? Just this central crazy out there. Funny meta about whatever we feel like. If we could, like, we can do an episode that we like less or something, but we just got to get back to this point, and then I'm okay with wherever we're going with Rick and Morty.
Well, it's one of those things, like, and I think that's something too, is that, like, you have here in the outline, does this confirm Rick and Morty is a show about nothing? Well, it is and it isn't. Like, Rick and Morty is just Rick and Morty. And so it's one of those things where,
it's not a show about nothing. It's a show about whatever it is, which is just Rick and Morty. Yeah.
Yeah, because that's the thing. Like, and again, like, we talk about it, like, the stuff we like about this show, like the interdimensional shit. We got like a million, like, there's so many different Rick and Mortys that, like, we could be doing, like, we could watch a whole season and we're like, oh, it's not our Rick and Morty. And we wouldn't know. Like, that's the thing. Like, they can do stuff like that, so it doesn't matter. Like we can have plot, and then, like, it just doesn't. I think that's something, like, I think that's another thing that's, like, kind of freeing about this show. Like, well, it's like they showed, like, remember, nothing out there is canon, but, like, it doesn't matter.
Yeah, this does feel so freeing, this episode. I feel like it's like, I feel like.
Which, do we like plot? Yes, but then it's also like, the reason we watch Rick and Morty is because it's hysterical. Like,
yeah. I would love for us to do something with Evil Morty, but, like, I care much more about the show feeling like I felt watching this episode.
Like, I don't think we'd be satisfied watching a whole season about Evil Morty. Like,
we don't want that. Yeah.
Like the strength of the show is, like, one, interdimensional cable, and then also, like, just that kind of stuff. But then also, like, it's not just the plot; it's also this universe that Rick and Morty exists in.
And I'll say, I think this is this season's interdimensional cable. I feel like we referenced it a few times at the end. Rick's like, okay, we're going to watch interdimensional cable. And that's what I love so much about it, too, is that we're not just doing a third interdimensional cable. We're not just falling into this routine of, like...
Well, I think it was, like, I was afraid, like, because, like, I'm sorry, like, interdimensional cable 2 was, like, okay.
I thought it was good.
It wasn't as good as the first.
And then we got Morty's Mind
Because they became
Benders,
so self-aware, and sometimes you
Morty's
lose the
Mind
magic.
Benders was amazing.
Okay,
that was really good.
Interdimensional cable 2 over Morty's Mind, but that's not the top. But what I'm saying is, like, we're not going to do an interdimensional cable every scene. Now we're going to do this, whatever the fuck this episode is. I'd prefer that so much more. Like, just do this nonsense more than a third interdimensional cable. That to me is also really freeing.
I really like Delaney's point about, like, basically this episode, it brings up so many things that fans have been talking about, like Evil Morty, like stuff with Bird Person, like all these characters that we wonder, like, what's the grander plot that, season 3 especially seemed to have been building up towards the end. And that kind of blew my mind a little, because I feel like that's like where something in me is shifting a little to get a little more on board with this. Because initially, when I watched this, I was like, okay, it just feels like, it's like a solid general Rick and Morty episode. But if it's doing what Delaney's saying, and it's just kind of like, there's been so much fan speculation and expectation building, because this is a crazy huge fandom. And I wouldn't be surprised if the show team is a little horrified by just the how like loud and vocal and
they should be horrified.
How expecting these fans are. So to have this episode like tease at all these plot points they've been speculating on, and then just kind of throw them out the window and be like, no, like none of those were real, and that's not what we care about. And just like, we want to do our own thing, and it might be different from that because that's not our priority. And you never know. Like Delaney's saying, like, it keeps you guessing, basically. Like, you never know what's going to be real or not, but that's the fun. Like, I feel like that intentionally kind of rerouting the purpose of the show into something that's not quite the same as what's always been, but still, like, freeing itself from the expectation of its fan base is pretty awesome. And I can totally get behind that as a motivation for season 4.
And, like, this isn't and I think that another thing they're trying to, like, enforce is, like, they joke about the anthology train, but, like, this show, like, we just had our She-Ra podcast. We cover a bunch of shows. This is not a traditional show, but it's not Family Guy either. Like, we have a plot, sort of. I mean, we do have a plot. There's stuff happening. We have plot threads, but then also, like, because whatever the hell bullshit, it doesn't matter when it happens because it could be happening all the time. So, like, it's one of those things, like, well, we can have this episode, and then next week we could see Evil Morty, or we could see Evil Morty on episode 75, and it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
That's the other thing. This episode makes me feel a lot better about the 100 episode order that we were, like, joking, but also a little scared of.
No, that's how I feel, right? Like, this episode's like, we're going to do whatever crazy shit we want. Like, we're worried about, like, are they going to have a Me-Seek sequel episode? Or are you just going to keep bringing in random stuff?
Yeah.
And it's like, this episode, they bring the Abradoff link letter, but it's as part of a joke that they're not going to do that. Like, so it's like, it has its own way of handling that. And that feels a lot. But yeah, and like, I agree. It makes you feel better about the 100 episodes.
Like, what I like about this show is, like, we have Rick and Morty and Summer, and, like, we have the family, and then we can have whoever the hell else, like, who, like, just coming in random episodes. Like, we have the family. We don't need, like, it'll be okay if we never see, these other characters again.
Yeah, I think so. And the other thing I want to say, here's how I describe it. It's some of the things we're talking about. To me, this episode felt like a perfect encapsulation of Rick and Morty's apathy towards everything.
Yes.
While also, but it also is engaging in things the audience does care about while being apathetic towards them at the same time. And it's doing it in a cynical way. And Rick and Morty is like, it's a very apathetic show. And it's like, okay, there's some things in this episode, the Bechdel test, others that you might say, like, why aren't we making more of a positive moral stance about important things? And I think Rick and Morty, to me, is the only show for me that succeeds in being apathetic. Whereas, like, a South Park typically, for me, fails in not caring about things. Rick and Morty, because of the way that they're able to execute at such a high level, can not take, like, stances on things and be really engaging intellectually.
Well, it's also
they do make it a conscious thing to be like, Nazis are bad every couple episodes. Like, that's pretty intentional.
Yes, and then they are working in some messaging more recently.
Well, and the Bechdel test thing too. Like,
I think you can interpret the Bechdel test as progressive messaging.
Well, that's the thing. It was fucking hysterical. Like, number one, that was just so funny. Because what's something we would never do? Okay, Morty. But then it's funny too.
They're making fun of how the show is doesn't have enough female characters and stuff.
Right,
exactly.
But at the same time, though, like, Summer and Beth are, like, very strong, like, characters. Granted, they get, like, blown off, but, like, we do have these characters. But then also, while they're doing the Bechdel test, they make fun of, like, other shows' attempts at passing the Bechdel test.
Yes, and they are also making fun of the Bechdel test itself, which
Yes.
Being such a low bar, yeah.
and maybe even the foundations of it. And it's like all of that is just jumbles together for a lot of people in a hard to decipher way. And then of course some bad people who watch are going to interpret it as like, they're saying the Bechdel test sucks and stuff. And it's frustrating that the show doesn't take more of a stance against those types of things. But like, it wouldn't be Rick and Morty maybe if it did too much of that. And I think the show has been moving in a better direction with all of that. Although I definitely think there's an interpretation of this episode where they could have been more clear about some things.
Yes.
But I don't know. The Bechdel test scene for me, like, it was
so
like,
funny.
fucking hilarious. Like,
And it was so good. Like, oh my god, like
the way like he made Beth and Summer talk about menstruation
their
in like
special
such
time,
an
their
their
heavy
special
special
time in like
time,
such an awkward
And it's our
stilted
power.
way.
Yeah.
It's our power, and they just start shooting beams out of their crotches and all the like he like
No,
like
actually,
Morty like
my
like all
favorite-
the female scorpions. That's
Yeah.
right.
No. The best, absolute best part of the episode is when they're like, yeah, and I'm that one Supreme Court justice.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Ruth
you
Bader
don't even
Ginsburg
know her
comes
name.
in.
I-
You're the one famous lady in the. It's so
lost-
funny. Like I love it.
I lost my shit. It was really, like,
It's very good.
you just have RBG. Like, why? Like,
We love the Ruth Bader jokes still in. Yeah, like
oh,
there's a random
so good.
Powerpuff Girls joke about it.
I know. Like, I'm sorry.
The-
RPG jokes, best jokes.
The
Like,
the Bechdel test scene is it's grounded in this like young boys trying to imagine a feminist story.
Exactly.
But it's
So
also
good.
a commentary on how Rick and Morty can be a sexist show, and it's also maybe a commentary about how movies trying to adhere too much to the Bechdel test is stupid and not being organic, and it's trying doing like all those things at once. But it's succeeding, I feel like, because it's grounded. And Rick and Morty's like, Morty's like, and scorpions are here. Like, and it's grounded in that. And I feel like it just succeeds kind of on all levels because of how it's executing in that degree. And then at the end, Rick's like, great job, Morty, a feminist masterpiece. And, and then,
it's so funny. But then also in the beginning where Morty was like, why is lesbian part of like,
right.
Oh, why is that part of her like credentials professionally?
yeah. it
Which
was
is,
so
I don't know. It's
Pretty woke. It's a pretty woke.
I think it's at the woke and also not woke. So bad people would say that
no,
too,
fair,
and
yeah,
it's
cool.
it's hard to tell what it's saying. I don't care. But overall, it gets there.
But then also Rick knows everything about it.
I know he's like, what did
Yeah,
he
and
teach you
Rick is like lecturing.
about sexual test?
Yeah.
And the fact that Rick, like the bad audience's hero, is lecturing on the Bechdel test, that's kind of powerful too, right? That he
It's
thinks
incredible.
it's important, even though it's a joke. It's important. I don't know. Okay, that's one of the highlights. I think the Jesus stuff is the other big highlight.
Oh my god, that we get Veggie Tales. Oh my god.
VeggieTales
Yes, I
is-
noticed VeggieTales too. I was like, what is this crazy? What is
And Rick is like, "Hey, Crossy." Like,
yeah,
I was
hey,
done.
Frosty, hey, like, oh my god.
Yeah, the concept of they're trying to draw the good stuff out of Rick and Morty, so he goes to he turns it into a religious story. That's just very funny on its own.
I'm just not. Oh my god, no. He's like, when he just starts talking, and Morty's like, "What are you saying?" Like, I literally I just died. Like,
that part was amazing, and then Jesus comes down and he's
and he's like,
ripped, too.
"What?"
Yeah, and that's such a good follow up to the previous ones too.
Oh, and then everyone's just like, "Oh my god!"
Yeah.
Like, so good.
Yeah, nobody wanted to see that shit. And then Morty, we're
So-
literally saved by Jesus. Jesus Christ, tell me in any way how that's offensive.
Yeah. It's so funny.
Yeah, I love that. And then at the end, he's like, Storylord's explaining the origin of Jesus to Jesus, and
He just self-destructs.
yes,
That's how he gets out.
Yeah.
Oh, that's so good. Yeah. I think the other big gag highlight is the tickets please guy and the cum gutters generally recurring.
Like, anytime we talk about Blitz and Chips, it's the best.
Yeah, we got Blitz and Chits, and it's like, okay, we're gonna go back to Blitz and Chits, or 100 episodes, but this is a really funny way to go back to Blitz and Chits. It's
Like, oh my god, like the fact that he comes out
So iconic.
and then he goes back to his family and he's like, "Are you okay, Dad?
Are you real?
Are you real?"
yeah. And you don't understand that they don't explain that the outside of the train's the fake stuff in the beginning. It's very hard to.
It's such whiplash. Like when
Yeah.
Delaney was saying halfway through, she feel like she's gonna have a seizure. I'm like, yeah, like no wonder. Like we don't have any
Literally.
semblance of reality.
I want the show to be nuts like this versus being super grounded in an ABC. Like I would so much prefer this, but at the same time, if they did too much of this, it would probably get
Exactly.
tiring on
It's
its own
it's
too.
a balance.
Yeah, it's probably a balance. Yeah. Love the tickets, please, guy, and everyone. Like,
Just
like
Floaty
I love that
blood
they
man.
changes. Yeah, they changes into floaty blood man.
Oh,
It's the
they're like,
Yeah.
what did the children are calling it? I'm like, this is terrible.
It's just swirling up there, bleeding over
There's
everyone.
the virgin guy worshiping him, and then
And they kept making like that's just the half of it. Like they just kept making.
oh yeah, that was it.
Oh yeah, the half.
That. Yeah,
And the cops were like, too soon.
Yeah. Oh, that's really good. We Goomby in the beginning. There's a lot of random stuff in the beginning.
There's just so like it's so, and then they're like, he didn't even save Christmas in that one.
Yeah, that was and then we get Story Lord. He's 90% cum gutters. I think all that's good. In general, it was the tickets please guy. Oh, he's so ripped. Like, wow. Like that was just really good. And then him being a good
and
human
Rick is like, why did you say that?
Yeah. It's great. We had a bird person musical in this episode.
Oh
That's
my god,
not
it's a
even...
bird person musical. No, it's like Rick just like gently cups his face.
Yeah. And
He's
then
like, I'm a bird and a person. Like it's so good.
Yeah, okay. And then back before the Jesus stuff, when they're trying to suck the anthology out of them, it's
the levers.
The what?
The levers, they were like relatability.
Yeah, all this kind of meta stuff on storytelling. So yeah, and we get Summer leaving for college.
That was good when they're trying to like end it. Oh.
Yeah. Aberdolf Linkletter's back.
Rick starts crying.
I know. Is any of this canon? It could have been. Sad. That's such a troll. Yeah, we get the Snowball in the robot suit. Yeah. Get as part of a bird person war, and we get Tammy and Summer lightsaber fighting.
Which was in the promo. So
oh my god! I know. And then she's like, "You betrayed me." Like
that was a little bit. It was a little bit of a betrayal.
The thing is, we've had a long running theory that Tammy is this random friend of Summer's in hiding, and they're just like destroying that here with this scene, and I'm so upset and happy at the same time.
Yeah,
also,
and happy.
This just generally pays off like Tammy being a friend of Summer in season 1, but also I feel like it's like, oh, she was gonna be back. COVID. No, I feel like the show's saying we're not doing that here, but it could do that, and that's infuriating and hilarious at the same time.
But at the same time, like even if they don't do it, the fact that they acknowledged it is amazing.
Yeah, they acknowledge this train of thought we're on. Not necessarily acknowledging our theory, but the fact that they acknowledged it at all, I think is very satisfying. And then Evil Morty, on everyone's mind, on the show's mind, he's a giant army and very crazy 3D animated this part too. And
when they like rotate behind him,
that was
like,
oh
my god.
And we have like Sith Lord Poopy Butthole with him leading the resistance.
Oh my god,
whatever it is, and that's just the biggest troll is like. Here's where we're putting Evil Morty, because that's by far their biggest plot thread hanging still, and I would be shocked if we didn't eventually go to Evil Morty. But
the thing is, Evil Morty never speaks, so like
and he doesn't like die or anything at then. I think he's just being deferential to Jesus, and also none of it's canon anyway. It could have.
It's true. Oh my god, it's so good.
It could have been.
Well, it's like, why aren't we talking about the part where they're throwing him out of the train, and like we get like the Vietnam like.
Yes.
Oh.
Yes,
Morty.
And then we get Rick as a professor, and
oh my god.
Yeah.
It's so
there's
good.
There's a lot of random stuff. Okay, and then at the end we get it was all the story train gift that Morty got from the Citadel of Rick's, and Rick starts he loves it. He's thank you for buying it.
Good grandpa kids.
You can do it in the mouth if you want. Some people do it.
Oh my god.
That's acceptable in some cultures. Yeah, you just looked straight into the bleeding jaws of capitalism and said, "Yes, Daddy, please."
I love this rant so much. I love this more than his other rants.
I think this is my favorite rant.
Yeah, me too.
Somehow this is better than Rick and Morty for 100 years. Like I don't know how this is better.
What's like? It's like commenting on the fact that like the merch of this show is insane. Like, and people buy so much Rick and Morty merch. It's so profitable for Adult Swim, I can imagine. So it's
there's
like
a Rick and Morty truck. It drives around.
There is. So it's like it's poking fun of itself in that way too, which is just hilarious. It's we know this is kind of obscene, but buy more anyway.
And there's a grounding of this is about storytelling this episode, and this is commentary at the end about how storytelling is only acceptable to society in the confines of how productive it is via its merchandise. I think there's that element too that he's saying. And also it's generally just a commentary on capitalism too. It's hilarious Rick spouting about how you need to be part of the capitalist society.
And he's like, don't turn it, just buy another one. Are you listening?
Yeah, just buy another one. You gotta buy.
Yeah. I'd prefer Rick talking about like stupid like on the side of espousing propaganda in his speech, I like better than Rick and Morty 1000. But that's good too.
I'm sorry, like, no, it was just so good because at first you're like, wow, Rick really likes his president, and then it's just like derails like so fast, and I'm just not over Give Grandpa a Kiss, and Morty is like, just like, oh my god, and he's like, do we need to go to the hospital?
It was really good. And then to top it all off, at the last line, nobody's out there shopping with this fucking virus. Where's your fucking wallet? He says.
Yeah, that's really good.
So how did they work in this virus line? Because this is not South Park where they make the show magic. 3 weeks before. It's
the magic of you get them to record it, send you the file, they do a little lip flapping switcheroo, and there you go. It's not that hard.
So they probably just ADR'd this. Yeah, did they have to change the animation? Even if you just change them out, that's a lot of effort.
No, it might not be that much effort. Lip flapping's not that hard. I think
this show takes a long time to make. This show is. I mean, this is.
This is on top of the regular rewrites they have to do.
Just the shape of the mouth itself, I think it was not that difficult.
They might have fit in a line that already basically matched what they had.
Yeah, they changed the line. They swapped out a line probably
just to something similar. And you're right. But Delaney's right. Rick and Morty goes through crazy revisions anyway.
Exactly.
But this one was the last few months, and okay. I'm sure they finished this episode a while ago, or maybe they didn't, and they're just still taking forever on production, which would suck. But it's like, we had to wait like half a year for the next 5 episodes. Like, we'll see how this next 100 episodes go, if they can be more streamlined like they were planning. But that was amazing at then, because it's like, how did you do that?
I was like, oh my god, no, and my fiance was like, she was like, are their animators okay? And I was like, I probably not.
Don't put the animators through that. That's true. And then the stinger is the Story Train commercial.
The commercial just keeps going. It's a really good commercial.
It's a really good commercial. The
website's not real though, but
he said it was. Maybe it's just not in our reality. That's
for the record. If they had bought the website domain just for the purposes of this episode, that would have been the best thing ever.
I assume they bought it and just didn't do anything, but with it.
Okay.
But well, I don't know. You have to buy it if you're going to put on the show.
Yeah, I would buy it.
Yeah, and I do like how we eventually, because this episode starts off with no explanation, and we eventually ground it until there's like a literal explanation of it being the story train at the end.
Which I think that's like a new sort of like, it's kind of like, and it's like reverse of what they normally do.
Yeah, normally the stinger's like random shit. Yeah.
Well, no, I meant like the reverse of how their stories are told.
Yeah, because it's like the heist episode, it's like, okay, I kind of get what we're doing the first time. Then it's like Heistatron goes ballistic in the second half of the episode. In this episode, we start off crazy and kind of wind down, but we also, we stay crazy, but it's just, we start to understand more.
Well, that's what I mean. Like there's it's usually like, it's different in that, like, normally we have a concept and then we take that concept to oblivion. In this case, we started out in oblivion. And then we found out what we were doing.
And we kind of found out. And I really liked that, yeah. Okay, Delaney, anything else from the episode, random jokes you want to highlight, or last thoughts on the episode?
I don't even know. Like, this episode is literally so funny. Like, it was so funny. The Bechdel test stuff was just ridiculous.
The lower into acid guy, I think, was really funny in the beginning.
Oh, that was good.
He was good.
It was like, and I have to kill him because he's a liar.
Yeah.
And also, like, it was really good when, like, Morty told his first story, and Rick was like, that is the worst story ever. And he was like, I didn't realize that it was going to be so on theme with other dumb bullshit.
Yeah, that was a good line, too.
He's like, I expected it to be bad, but I didn't expect it to be that bad.
Yeah, it was really good.
A lot of fun commentary lines like that, yeah. Michelle, anything else in the episode?
Just really like the ticket please guy floating around every so often, just because innards everywhere, freaking out passengers.
Oh, and then of course the whole, like, the guy was like, oh my god, no, when it was like, you're a virgin to save the universe? Yeah. That's so hot. And then, like, so funny.
The guy's like, we've been on this train so long and no one's taken our tickets. And then
he's just like,
he's so
against the window.
Okay, yeah. There's so much I love here. And
I really like the continuity. Like, the guy who's like, well, if you shot it and there's always been a continuity explosion, then they could be anywhere. And they're like, no, that's stupid.
Yeah, the whole cops thing is like, what? Yeah, okay, what
that
is
was
this?
Really.
Yeah.
Oh no, yeah. I really like what did they do wrong? They shot the passengers. No.
Yeah, that was good too. Good commentary.
And then the second video, they're like, drop the shot. drop it and they shoot
And
them
then they shoot
anyway.
him. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that was good. I like that. Yeah, so yeah, I think the explanation of why this episode stood out so much. And I like what we explored with what the show is, which is, it's hard to pin down, but I think we did
Well, I think the
best we
difference
could.
is that, like, the show does stuff and, like, explores things, but, like, again, like, as opposed to other shows, like, it really doesn't make a judgment, but it's almost a judgment just because they show it as opposed to showing it and laughing at it. Like, Rick and Morty, like, stuff happens, and, like, I mean, Rick thinks everything's stupid. But, like, I don't know, like the cop stuff. Like, Rick didn't make any commentary on it. It's just you watching it.
Yeah, it's true. It does leave stuff open for interpretation, maybe for better or for worse. But yeah, and I think it guides you in enough of a direction.
Yeah.
And
then we also have Morty, who was, like, actually a nice person, but then also, like, Morty, like, when, like they killed,
Yeah, Morty was fighting people left and
well,
right. He was
no,
beating
but
the
Morty,
crap out of people.
Morty shot Tickets Please guy, and he was like,
Tickets
he was in
Please
a
guy.
lot of pain, and he was like, he was in a lot of pain.
he had Mercy.
Oh,
kills him
yeah,
at
that's
the
true.
end.
He made,
okay.
yeah. Make sure he died.
That's just there's a lot of small stuff that's started in there, but I like that. But yeah, I think we did we tried to explore what this means for the show, and we'll see how the rest of the season plays out, kind of with this in mind. Next week we have an Alien parody, so maybe going in a more traditional route.
Finally.
But yeah, that is
we'll
happening.
see. You can never tell.
And then the week after we have the Vat of Acid episode, which I'm very excited for.
I am excited about the Vat of Acid episode. Oh my god, what if it's related to this Vat of Acid?
Yeah, that's what
There
I was
is a
thinking.
there is lower into the acid guy here, so we're starting to have a theme.
There's a theme.
Yeah, people think this might be a Joker thing. We'll see. That'd be very exciting.
Oh my gosh. Yes. Oh man, go for the Joker. Just
Go
the
for it.
jugular.
We'll see. Okay, but yeah, those are more traditional. We're parodying a thing. Like that's what next week is.
Yeah.
So like the show can do that type of episode. It can do this type of episode. So we'll see how it executes on maybe more of a traditional thing, or maybe next week will be crazy like this one. Who knows? So yeah, we'll be back to talk about it whenever we feel like. So we'll see when that is. No promises for it to be soon. That's the
Yeah.
conclusion. So
We do what we want, like Rick and Morty.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, like Rick and Morty will be here. We'll do what we want and when we feel like it. And subscribe to not miss whenever there's overlyanimated.com. Search overly animated Rick and Morty. YouTube.com/overly animated. We have a Rick and Morty channel on our Discord. You can talk about Rick and Morty at overlyanimated.com/Discord. And you can support us if you enjoyed this at patreon.com/overlyanimated. Thank you to all our current patrons, especially our patron of the podcast, Dr. Cabbagehead. And thanks as always to our patron executive producers, Ryan, Steve, Alex, Beatrice, Hugh, Michael, and Needle. All the other shows, check all that out at overlyanimated.com. I don't know how relevant. I will say Solar Opposites is coming out, and we probably will have a podcast on
Yeah.
that is from Rick and Morty people. So
It's literally Rick and Morty, but they're aliens.
it's coming out on Friday, relative to
Oh,
when this podcast
wow.
is recorded. So
May's a
that's
lot.
exciting. May is
a
yeah.
lot,
Yeah,
but it's
so
exciting.
I'm looking forward to Solar Opposites. Anyway, thanks for listening, guys. We will see you next time. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.